Hey everybody, I had a question that came to me by email, and the question basically was, how do I create and store a signature in Photoshop so I can use it over and over again on future projects? Are we ready for this? Let's do it. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. And the question I had again was, how do I create my own signature to put it in future projects that I might be doing in Photoshop, and I'd like to use it over and over again. So there's a couple different ways of doing that. You can actually create a brush, or you can actually create an object and actually save it in our library panel in Photoshop and actually reuse that over and over and over again on future projects. So what I did was, this question was brought up to a class I taught last year. It was a 5-week class in Photoshop here in Michigan. And so I actually recorded that session, the answer to that question, I should say. And I'm just going to play that segment for you. If you don't understand, please email me. I'll help clarify the technique for you. But again, the email is stevenphotoartist@gmail.com. That should be at the bottom of the screen right here. And let's play that video, and then I'll follow it up with a few information at the very end. Okay, this is a quick review of how to bring in a signature into Photoshop so you can use it on your projects. We talked about 3 different ways of doing this. I just want to do a quick review on it. Number 1 is you have well, let's do this. I'm going to go to File, drop-down menu, choose New. I'm just going to choose a Photoshop default file size. Just choose Create. And with a Wacom device, or if you have a touch screen that's pen enabled, obviously we can come into a new document like this, do our signature, and convert that into a brush by just going to File, drop-down menu, and come down, Edit drop-down menu, and come down to Define Brush Preset. So that's one way of doing it. Obviously, if we don't have, you just delete this. If we don't have a touch screen or Wacom device to do that, your other 2 options are getting a white sheet of paper. I recommend a felt tip pen. Make your signature on that sheet of paper. Take it to a scanner. If you hopefully have a flatbed scanner, you can scan that in as and bring it out as a JPEG, and then bring it into Photoshop. And you might have to still tweak it a little bit, so we'll talk about that in a few minutes. Your other option is to, again, just sign your name on a sheet of paper, again with a felt tip pen, then grab your camera and make sure you got it lit really well. Take a picture of that and then bring it into Photoshop. So if you remember from the class, I purposely actually did, let me get rid of that XMP. I actually took a photo of my signature, but I purposely did it with bad lighting. So you can see when this opens up, you see a lot of gray and stuff in there. And I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to leave that alone and click on Open, just to show you that if you don't have a pure, clean white background with no detail, this is what's going to happen to you. Now, instead of grabbing this whole area, I'm just going to grab the lasso tool, so L on the keyboard, or just physically go to your toolbar there and select the lasso tool. And I'm just going to say, okay, let's take this area right here, and we're going to make that our brush. So just a rough selection around there. Now I want to go to the Edit drop-down menu, and I choose Define Brush Preset, give it a name. I'm just going to keep the default one right there. Because my background was not pure white, here's what happens. When I click on OK, I go over here, here's my brush. Left bracket, by the way, I'm tapping, make it smaller. But it doesn't look like my signature. And the reason is I'm capturing my signature and that gray area. So obviously that's not what we want. So I'm going to undo that with Control Z. And let's go back over here, Control D, to deselect the marching ants, or if you go to Select drop-down menu, that's the long way, you can see deselect right here. So a couple different ways of doing that. And what I want to do is fix this. So the easiest way is probably just go back to Filter drop-down menu, and you can actually choose Camera Raw Filter. So I'll let that open up. And with that opened up, I'm going to push my exposure up, but I don't want to go too far because I'm losing the blue a bit. So if I go too far, you can see how that's getting washed out. So I'm just going to move that up a little bit. And in contrast, I'm going to push that a bit up there. Highlights does very little, but I'll push it to 100. And then the whites, that should really take care of my background. I want to see that warning, all that red right there. That says there's no detail in that area, and that's perfect. I still have detail over here, so I got to be careful with that. So enough around this so I can actually capture that with my lasso tool. I'll stay in that area. I'm just going to push down the blacks a bit to bring in the signature a little bit, because again, the felt tip pen was drying out. I just didn't get a good, strong enough, bold enough a signature on the paper right there. But that should work for me right there. So I'm going to click on OK to accept this down here. And you can see how that updated. Now when I grab the lasso tool, again, L for lasso, or just grab it off the toolbar right there. And I'm going to, by the way, again, look at this area out here, the gray area. And I want to make sure I stay away from that. So I know in here this was all blown out. It was a pure white. Now I'm telling it right there, again, make that brush. So when I go to Edit, drop-down menu, and choose to define brush, and I'm going to give this a name. I'll just put in my name so I can identify that. I'm going to deselect, so Control D, or you can go to the, again, select drop-down menu and choose deselect, whichever you want to do. I really don't need this anymore because I could actually close it out and not save it. But if I go to any project I'm working on, there's my signature. And maybe I'm going to put it in the corner. Now, this is really big if this was an actual project, but it's just, again, a demo. Remember, right square bracket, left square bracket will adjust your size. And if I click, there we go. I'm just double clicking to make sure it's I've got enough blackness in there. And again, if I come over here to the chip color and I go to change that to, I don't know, a red color, now it's going to be that red color. D on the keyboard makes this back to black and white on my chip colors right there. So that's how easy it is to actually create a signature. Now what we want to do is place that into our library. Now to do that, here I am in the layers, and we're going to talk about layers in depth in week 2, but I'm going to click on this little plus right here in the layers panel to add a new layer. Now this layer right here has a checkerboard pattern, means there's nothing on it. And if I poke the eyeball right there, it's called poking the eye out, it's hiding that. You can see the checkerboard pattern here, and it means that we have no content at all. And I'm on this active layer right here. If I put my signature on there, I'll just make this bigger so you can see this. Okay, what I want to do is load that into my library. And the way you do that is go to your library panel. Now by default, you're probably not there. It might be properties, adjustments, find libraries. And in libraries, I want you to click in the upper right corner and choose create a new library. Give it a name. I'm just going to call this signature. And then choose create right here on the create button. And now we're ready to go. If I grab my move tool, so that's like V for Victor, or physically click on it right here at the very top, you can take this, click and drag this into the library, and now that is stored. So if I close out of this and I'm in a project and I want to use that signature, that's all I have to do is go to libraries, find it, click and drag, and drop it into my project. And you could resize this, whatever size you want, move it wherever you want to put it. Now, if you want this to be a different color, it's easy to do, and we're going to talk about this when we talk about layers in week 2, but with this layer selected at the very top there, you can come down here to choose what's called a adjustment layer, and there's all these different effects. So you can choose color overlay. And when that opens up, you can go over here. You can see I changed to white over here because that's your default is white. If I click on this, I can choose any color I want and then click on OK. And now you see I changed the color. So pretty cool to add a signature in a project. But I think the better thing is to actually save it in your library so you can use it over and over and over again. I think it's just easier to use than always trying to find it under brushes. So B for brush. And if I go to the very bottom, because that's where, if you go down here, very bottom, this is where your brushes are at. This is the first one I made. So right mouse click, I don't need that. And that's delete the brush. So that's gone. And again, I don't need that brush anymore at the bottom. So right mouse click on the one that I named Steve, and let's just delete that. That doesn't matter for me because I always have it over here on the far right side, again, as a library item. So hopefully that helps you guys. When we meet up again for our next session, if this didn't make sense, let me know. I'll run through this again for you. But hopefully this video helped you out. Okay, guys, once again, that was a recording from a class I taught last year in 2022 regarding that question, how to create a signature and, again, store it in the library in Photoshop and reuse it over and over. Just once again, if you have a question about that, didn't quite understand it, please email me again at stevenphotoartist@gmail.com. The other thing, if you could please do me a favor, and that is I discovered in the YouTube world or whatever, please like a video. It just helps with the algorithm to get out to other people who have a similar interest. So if you please, again, if you could like the video, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. That way, the next time I upload a video, you'll be able to be notified on that. Okay, so hopefully you learned something today. And until next time, let's get out and start shooting, practicing. You guys ready? Let's do it.